Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about the VCT Americas standings after Super Week. Now, if you don't know what Super Week was, it was a week where every team from this league played 2 games, and now we have a bit more of a good idea of who the top teams are, who the mid-range teams are, and who the bad teams are. So we're just going to get into it and talk about it. First off, we have Loud, who sit in first place in this entire league. They have 5 wins, 0 losses. Also, there's ties on this. This is from VLR. I don't know why ties are there. Are ties a thing in this league? I don't think so. Anyways, they've won 10 maps, they've lost 4, they've looked very good throughout this entire run so far. They've won 157 rounds, they've lost 125 rounds, and they have a round differential of 32. In their last 2 matches, they are, of course, 2-0, looking very strong. Loud, I do think, is the best team in this entire region. I don't think many people are going to argue with me on that. It's not really a surprise. They've looked very good throughout their entire history in Valorant. There isn't much discussion about them, not being as good as they once were. Maybe once Pancata and Sassy left for Sentinels, there was that discussion, but they quickly silenced that with getting a second place finish in lock-in tournament, almost winning that one, just barely losing out to Fnatic there. And they've looked really good. They haven't lost a single match. As I've said, they really look dominant in this entire league. I don't think it's a stretch to say that they're probably going to qualify for Tokyo. I don't see them dropping out of first place. Again, they're going undefeated. I think that's going to continue. There's a possibility that they lose a match or two, but I don't really see it happening. Their upcoming schedule isn't, super intimidating. They've already faced a lot of teams that people thought were going to be able to match them. I'm not too concerned about their chances. They're probably going to make it to Tokyo. I highly doubt that they drop anywhere below first in this region, but crazier things have happened. For their super weak opponents, they played Sentinels and Evil Geniuses. Pretty easy competition for them. The match against Sentinels got really close. I did expect Loud to win that one 2-1, so I was right about that, but Sentinels made it really close. It looked like they were going to win it at some point, and then Loud it just kind of seemed like they said, all right, enough fun, let's end this, and they did. So don't see them dropping out of first. Think they're going to continue their dominance. Next up, surprisingly in second place, we have Cloud9. They have won 4 matches, they've lost 1, they have won 9 maps and lost 3, so very good numbers there. The round differential is plus 23, winning 141 rounds to 118 lost rounds. They've looked really good so far, and not a lot of people really expected it. I certainly didn't. Them losing Ye and Vanity, I thought, were mistakes. I know that there was apparently problems with the roles that Ye and Vanity filled, and they wasn't quite working. Apparently one of the Cloud9 assistant coaches said something on Reddit about it wasn't a knee-jerk decision to drop Ye and Vanity. It was actually a long time coming because they had months and months of scrim data showing that this just wasn't working. So fair enough. I'm not running the team, so I don't know for sure if that's true or if there's something else going on there. Losing those 2 players, I don't think a lot of people expected them to be as good as they have been, but they have looked really well, and their new additions seemingly are working pretty well. So they're sitting in second. I think right now they look like the best team from NA, and I don't think that there's much debate for that. They've looked super solid. They're definitely making playoffs. Will they get top 3 in those playoffs and represent NA in Tokyo Masters? We shall see. Next up, we have Leviathan, who I know that's not how you say that name, but I'm going to say it anyway. They went 1-on-1 over the weekend, beating MIBR and losing to 100 Thieves. Currently, they sit 3rd in the league. They have 3 wins to 2 losses. They have won 8 maps and lost 5. They've won 155 rounds and lost 127 for a round differential of plus 28. Looking really solid. I think they're performing about as people expected them to. People definitely expected them to be a strong team, myself included. I didn't really expect 3rd, but they can lose their next one and they can drop a couple spots because a lot of teams are 3-2 right now. 2 other ones sitting right behind them. They could definitely keep that spot. They're a skilled enough team to do so, and they already have a pretty good record so far, so that definitely helps them. Their next 2 opponents are EG and Crew, 2 of the worst teams in the entire league, so not a lot of tough competition for those ones, but their last 2 they are facing Cloud9 and Loud, so they really need to step up their game for that one. But they pretty much have free wins against Evil Geniuses and Crew, so they should be able to maintain that spot for the time being. Will they represent the LATAM region at Tokyo Masters? It's very possible, but they got to make it through playoffs, and there's going to be some tough competition in those playoffs, so we will see. Next up in 4th, we have 100 Thieves, a team that a lot of people have thought have been struggling, but they still sit in 4th. They've won 3 matches, they've lost 2. They have won 7 maps and lost 6, 151 rounds won to 146 rounds lost for a round differential of +5. So not fantastic numbers. A lot of people have kind of seen this team as struggling, but they have won the majority of their games so far, and they are looking pretty decent. Now, for the last 2, I got it wrong on this slide here. I'm too lazy to go change it. They actually went 2-0 over Super Week, beating Crew and Leviathan. So, looking solid. Cryo has been a talking point. He hasn't been as good on 100 Thieves as he was for XSET. They really got to figure out how to get him going, and hopefully that they've done that, winning their last 2. I do think 100 Thieves is talented enough to make it to Tokyo Masters. Whether or not they do is still very much up in the air because there's a lot of competition, especially with where they are in the standings right now. I think they at least make playoffs, but do they do damage in said playoffs? I don't know. Next up, we have Furia, who over the last couple weeks have slipped a little bit. They were sitting atop the division at the very start of the season, winning their first 2 games, I believe, and they have now dropped down to 5th. So they need to rack up some wins in the coming weeks because they have Energy and Sentinels breathing down their necks. They've won 3 matches, they've lost 2. They are even on their maps. They have lost 6 and won 6. They have won 128 rounds, lost 132 rounds for a round differential of -4. So not great numbers right there. They started really strong and then they've kind of been tapering off. They need to win their next 2. They are facing MIBR next, so that's a really big match for them. And then they're facing Energy, who are right behind them and are going to want to improve because they are struggling as well. So they really need to bring their A game. They're not the best Brazilian team, that is for sure. So will we see 2 Brazilian teams in Masters? I kind of doubt it. I think Loud is going to be the only team representing that region, but it is possible for Fear. They have looked good. I'm not liking their chances too much, but I do think that they kind of keep their spot where they are right now. Next up, for the last spot in playoffs currently, we have Energy Esports, who haven't been as advertised. The roster then is built up of the Optic Core, aside from Ye and Marved. It currently sits in 6th. They have won 2 matches. They have lost 6. They have won 6 maps, lost 6 maps, even on that. But the round differential is a positive, so that's good. They have won 136 and lost 129, so they're not performing terribly, but they haven't really been great. This team is basically the old Optic Core of FNS, Victor and Crashies, just minus Ye and Marved, and adding Som and Artis. Artis hasn't been performing great, but he also hasn't been playing a lot of Jet. He's been playing a lot of Sage for some reason. It hasn't worked out. They did put him on Jet, and he performed really well. So hopefully they keep doing that, because that seems to be what works for him, and I don't think being a Sentinel really is what he's used for. Over the weekend, they went 1-1, facing Crew and Cloud9, almost beating Cloud9. They won a map there, they just couldn't close it out, and then Crew, they just stomped because it's Crew, they're last, they suck. I don't think anyone was surprised with that win, so it's not really anything to really write home about, but they really need to keep performing well and keep the wins up and just figure out their role issues, because they really need to get things going. Their next opponent are 100 Thieves, and that is going to be a big match for that 4th place spot. So they really need to get it going here. They're a talented team. 4 of their players have won tournaments before, so they know how to win. They just need to get their stuff going, and I think they can qualify for Tokyo. They really need to step it up now. Speaking of teams that need to step it up now, Sentinels. Sentinels sitting 1 spot out of a playoff spot in 7th place. They have won 2 matches. They have lost 3. They've won 6 maps. They've lost 7. 138 rounds won to 144 lost for a round differential of -6. Over the weekend, they went 1-1, facing Loud and MIBR, and they really gave it to Loud. They almost won that. It looked like they were going to, as I said before, but they just couldn't close it out. It is Loud's best team in the entire region and probably the world, so I'm not exactly too pressed about them losing that one, but their play improved. And we'll see if Sentinels can keep the train going and keep the wins coming. So their next opponent is Cloud9, who have been very good, so that's going to be a big one. They really need to win at least 3 of their last 4 to be able to qualify. And then you qualify, and then you go to playoffs. Will they do damage in the playoffs? It's possible. They have a lot of talent, but I just don't know. Personally, I'm not predicting them to qualify for Tokyo Masters, but they can do it, and they're going to be really motivated coming out of Super Week. So we'll see what happens. And next up, a team that has fallen from grace, MIBR, sitting 8th in the league. They have won 2 matches, they have lost 3, so the same record as Sentinels, but they have lost more rounds, so they are sitting below them. They have won 5 maps, they have lost 8, they have won 126 rounds and lost 165s for a -39 round differential, not where you want to be. At the start of the year, after losing to Loud, they won their next 2 and looked pretty good, looked pretty dominant. They beat Energy, so pretty solid win from them there, but they've lost their last 2, going 0-2 for Super Week. Being the 3rd Brazilian team, they really want to be in the same echelon as Furia and Loud, but it doesn't look like it's very possible. It did look like they had a pretty good chance of qualifying for the playoffs pretty early in the season. They were looking good. They did lose to Loud, but they didn't look bad against them, and they had 2 pretty solid wins, but they've lost their last 2, and now they're kind of in a hole, so they need to do better. Their next opponent is Furia, so a big match against 2 Brazilian teams that needs to be a win for MIBR if they want to get back in this. If they lose, I think they're pretty much out of the whole thing. And after that match, they face Cloud9, who, as we have established, are very good this year. It's going to be a tough road for MIBR. They really need to get their stuff together. Hopefully they can do it. And for our second last team on this list, sitting in 9th place, unsurprisingly, is Evil Geniuses. They have won 1 match, they've lost 4, they've won 4 maps, they've lost 9, they've won 130 rounds, they've lost 147 for a -17 round differential. I don't think anyone expected them to really do well in this league. They've lost their last 2, winning 2 maps for the entire Super Week, so it didn't look horrible against Furia or Loud, but they still lost. I am surprised that they took a map off of Loud. That's pretty surprising, but Loud did just shut them up pretty quickly after that, so not really important. I do really feel bad for the players on Evil Geniuses. I know that these are players that have a high compete level and want to do well, and they have been showing it. They've been showing a lot of heart, but it just seems like the org doesn't really care what happens to this team. They didn't make sweeping changes during the offseason. They kind of just waited till everybody else did their rosters, and then they kind of picked up the scraps, which could have been a good idea if they had done it properly, but they kind of didn't. So now they just kind of sit in a place where these players know that they're not going to make playoffs. They know that they're not going to beat most teams. So I feel bad. Hopefully they can get a couple more wins, but they're not making playoffs. They're not making Tokyo. Not happening. And last and certainly least, we have Crew Esports, who sit 10th in the VCT Americas League. They have won 0 games so far. They've lost 5. They've won 3 maps. They've lost 10. They've won 126 rounds, and they've lost 155 for a round differential of -29. They went 0-2 over Super Week. They won 1 map, and that was against 100 Thieves, but they did lose that. They went 0-2, obviously, over Super Week, and it's just been a disaster for this team. It's been really not good. Crew was a team that I really rooted for in 2021 and 2022. They were a team that, while they didn't have a ton of super high-end talent, they still played really well in a lot of tournaments, having some upset victories, including a very famous win over Sentinels. But 2022 was a pretty rough year for them, and then they changed a lot of their roster, and then they brought Kesnet back for this one. Things looked like hopefully they could get better, and then quickly in this league, their hopes have been dashed. They're not making playoffs. I'd be shocked if they even win 1 match. I hope they do. I do like this team, and I really want them to succeed, but they just haven't looked good at all. I feel bad for the players. They obviously want to do well. They have a high compete level, but they just can't beat any of these teams. Not even Evil Geniuses, who sit 1 point above them, 1 win above them. So it's really rough for them. I feel bad, but that's just the way it goes. So let me know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to qualify for playoffs? Who do you think is going to qualify for Tokyo Masters? Who do you think is going to sit atop of this league when the regular season and playoffs are over? Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good day. See ya.